After much difficulty, we managed to squeeze past the 9-layered demonic tower. We hadn't walked 200 steps when I suddenly felt something soft underfoot, as if I had stepped on a very large creature. I took out my flashlight and shone it, revealing a colossal reptile beneath my feet, unlike anything I had ever seen. It extended a long tongue. Its skin color was very similar to the earth. It looked somewhat like a giant gecko, its shape vaguely resembling a crocodile, yet it lacked the rough skin. Its mouth was not pointed like a lizard's, but rather round. Its tongue was red and long like a snake's, splitting at the tip. Its entire body was pitch black, covered with large white circular spots. Based on its external appearance, one could essentially say it was a very large frog with an exceptionally long tail. All my life I have feared neither heaven nor earth, but I am somewhat apprehensive of such disgusting things. I jumped back in fright, shrinking behind Ndu. He too had seen this strange creature, and his reaction was likely similar to mine. A sudden start. Perhaps a soldier's only reliable friend is his rifle. Ndu reacted instinctively, raising his gun and firing a few bang-bang shots. The reptile convulsed a few times and then died instantly. At this moment, Lac Nin came running from behind to examine the carcass on the ground. She sighed and said, "This is a species of underground salamander. They mainly eat insects and plankton and are not harmful to humans." I felt no pity for the dead creature, but I worried that Ndu's hasty gunfire might have awakened the bugs sleeping silently in the tower. Damn it. When someone encounters bad luck, they choke on bones even when eating rice cakes. The bugs in the 9-layered demonic tower must have been awakened by the gunfire. Instantly, countless blue fireballs lit up like lamps. The entire underground space was illuminated by the green glow of the fire. The wooden tower also caught fire, and the flames grew steadily larger. Hundreds of fireballs rushed towards us. Despite the intense fire, we felt no heat. Instead, we shivered with cold, our teeth chattering. Seeing the bad situation, Ndu quickly pulled out 2 grenades tucked into his belt, intending to pull the pins and throw them to detonate the swarm of fireballs. I quickly held his hand. "Just throw one. Keep one for a final honorable sacrifice. I don't want to be burned alive by these demonic flames." Our wooden-handled grenades were standard issue for infantry. The top part consisted of an iron casing enclosing a cylindrical head, while the bottom was a wooden handle. After pulling the pin, the internal explosive pressure would project fragments of the iron casing to injure enemies. Their destructive power was not very strong. Ndu kept 1 grenade and I held 1. Seeing many fireballs charging towards us, I pulled the safety pin and swiftly threw the grenade, which was billowing white smoke. The grenade exploded, releasing a cloud of white smoke. Over 10 fireballs flying at the front were hit by shrapnel, falling down in rapid succession and extinguishing. However, even more fireballs from behind continued to swarm towards us. Lac Nin ran ahead, with the 3 of us following closely behind. As we retreated, we used our semi-automatic rifles to snipe. Each person had over 20 rounds, and in less than 2 minutes, we had expended all of them. To deal with these terrifying bug-made fireballs, we could only use guns, because merely touching them would result in being burned alive. Guns without ammunition were no more useful than a poking stick. Ndu threw his gun aside, took out the last grenade, and shouted, "Hu Bayi. It's time. Should I pull the pin?" Lac Nin and I helped Caoa. The 4 of us formed a circle around the grenade in Ndu's hand. I stared intently at the grenade before me. As soon as Ndu pulled the pin, in a few seconds, we would all perish together, shattering like jade and stone. The final moment had finally arrived. At that moment, I could not think of too many other things. A swarm of fireballs was drawing closer by the moment. First, there was no time to think, and second, I feared that dwelling too much on life and death would weaken me. I had always wanted to be a war hero like Yang Jingxi, but to not die on the battlefield, and instead meet an ambiguous end deep within the Kunlun Mountains. I truly could not accept it. I steeled my heart, about to tell Ndu to pull the grenade's pin. Lac Nin had already closed her eyes, waiting for death, but as if struck by an idea, she suddenly stood up and held our hands. Listen to the sound of rushing water. This must be very close to an underground river. Let's jump in. Up until then, we had been so preoccupied with shooting and preparing for suicide by grenade that we had completely forgotten about the underground river. In our panic, we hadn't even heard the gurgling water. As soon as Lac Nin finished speaking, everyone remembered there was still a way out. If we could jump into the river first, even if the fireballs were terrifying, they wouldn't be able to harm us. Easier said than done, but at that moment, things happened very quickly. Innumerable green fireballs were mere inches away. The 4 lucky survivors, desperate for life, raced toward the sound of rushing water. Following the sound of water, it seemed the river was only about a dozen meters away. We ran a few steps to the end of the cave, and right at the turn, a large waterfall appeared before our eyes, with a rather large natural underground lake below. Before I could properly look, I suddenly felt a searing heat on my back, a burning pain in my liver and guts. I thought I had been struck by a fireball. Just one of these small sparks, and the flames would instantly consume my entire body. In that moment of life and death, there was no time for hesitation. I quickly crouched and plunged into the lake. In the panic, I saw the 3 remaining friends also catching fire, screaming as they successively jumped into the water. I fully submerged myself, and the greenish, blue flames on my body were immediately extinguished by the lake water. Water and fire are opposing elements. The remaining bugs seemed to recognize the lake water's power, hovering only 2 or 3 meters above the surface, not daring to dive down and attack. I surfaced to catch my breath and saw Ndu also emerging. However, I didn't see Lac Nin and Caoa. I worried they couldn't swim and might drown in the lake, so I took a deep breath and dived underwater to search for them. Just then, Lac Nin helped Caoa surface. It turned out Caoa had never swum since he was a child. After jumping into the lake, he choked on water and passed out. Lac Nin happened to see him, dived down, and rescued him. Fortunately, he wasn't submerged for long. Caoa coughed out a few mouthfuls of water and regained consciousness. It was a Tibetan custom not to swim or bathe in lakes, so Caoa continuously mumbled prayers, asking the Buddha for forgiveness. The space above the lake surface was illuminated as brightly as day by countless fireballs. The 4 of us huddled together. It was early spring, but the underground water here was not cold at all. Instead, we felt a gentle warmth on our bodies. This must have been a hot spring formed by geothermal activity. Ndu cursed, "Damn it, my gun is gone." It sank to the bottom of the lake. I reminded him, "We're out of ammo. Guns are useless now. We need to quickly figure out a way to escape. Keep your head down, the firebugs are coming down now." Ndu didn't believe that the fire-covered bugs could fly down into the lake. He grinned broadly and laughed, but his smile immediately froze. 1,000 brilliant blue fireballs were gradually converging to form a giant flame. With a whoosh, the entire fiery mass plunged violently into the lake. Ndu hastily dived deep underwater. I took a breath, about to dive, when I saw Caoa frozen like a statue. He was inherently afraid of lake water, and didn't dare to dive down and hide. I had to forcibly push his head under, pulling his shoulder back as I dived into a deep stretch of water. The diameter of the fireball must have been over 10 meters. As soon as it touched the lake surface, steam billowed up. Although the fireball was large, the lake surface was even wider, rendering the suicide attack method of the kamikaze bugs ineffective. They successively drowned in the water. The lake bottom was originally pitch dark, but with the light from above, we could barely make out the surroundings within about a dozen meters beneath the surface. In the deep water, countless large fish swam leisurely. These fish were completely different from any species I had seen before. Their whiskers were very long, resembling dog salmon. Due to living in a lightless environment for so long, their eyes had degenerated, leaving only 2 white spots. Startled by the strange appearance of the fish, I accidentally swallowed a few mouthfuls of water. Turning back, I saw Caoa flailing wildly. He likely couldn't hold his breath much longer and wanted to surface for air. Just then, the lake bottom suddenly grew dim. I guessed that most of the bugs had died, so I pulled Caoa to the surface of the lake. Dead bugs floated thickly on the lake surface. Without the firelight, there was only an abyssal darkness everywhere. I shouted to Ndu, "Ndu, do you have a flashlight?" And Du replied, "They're all gone. There's nothing left. Now we'll have to feel our way forward." Suddenly, a light flashed ahead. It turned out Lac Nin had surfaced from the lake. With one hand, she wiped water from her face, and with the other, she held a military-issue crutch-shaped flashlight. "The last two are on me." Luckily, I kept them in my pocket, so they didn't fall to the bottom of the lake. Everyone pulled each other ashore. We all felt tired and hungry, with no strength left to go on. After over 10 hours without food, let alone flesh and blood bodies, even those with skin of iron and bones of brass would find it difficult to endure much longer. And Du immediately jumped back into the lake, used his bayonet to spear a fish, roughly scraped off its scales, cut it into a few slices, and ate it raw. I tasted a piece first. The raw fish meat tasted acceptable, not too fishy, just slightly bitter. After chewing a few more pieces, I found it quite fragrant. Only Caoa refused to eat, no matter what. The three of us ate an entire large fish raw, but it wasn't enough. So Ndu dived back into the lake to catch more. Lac Nin checked Caoa's leg wound, while I walked around the lake's edge, looking for a possible exit. With such a strong waterfall, this lake must have an outflow. The waterfall was also several tens of meters high. According to Lac Nin's estimation, this system might be an underground branch of the Yarlung Sangpo River. Furthermore, there could be volcanoes deep underground, which would explain why the lake water was so warm. I took Lac Nin's flashlight and found the outflow. The lake water flowed out through there. The actual outflow path was a cave 7 or 8 meters high, completely submerged in water, with no walkable path. The only way forward was to swim. I returned to Lac Nin and recounted the situation to her. Lac Nin's map and compass were both lost, so now we could only rely on intuition to speculate. Lac Nin had many years of experience in surveying and drawing. She guessed our current position wasn't far from Budongchen. That spring didn't freeze even in the bitter cold of winter, indicating magma underground. The problem was how to get back to the surface. Lingering underground indefinitely wasn't a good solution. The only feasible option now was to swim along the river, because where there is a river, there is never a dead end. Ndu returned dejectedly. This time, he hadn't caught any fish. We didn't want to linger any longer. The three who knew how to swim took Caoa in the middle, and following the current, swam deeper into the cave. This underground river was not wide, but the current beneath was very strong. Propelled by the rushing water, we drifted and swam effortlessly. However, the water temperature had increased significantly, and we could smell sulfur everywhere. Despite swimming in the water, our mouths felt dry and our tongues parched. Ndu began to grow impatient, muttering as he swam, "This time, we've surely made a mistake of left-wing adventurism. Why haven't we found an exit yet? The current here is so strong, there's nowhere to stand and catch our breath. We might as well swim upstream." I immediately criticized him. "What have you been doing up until now? Only after swimming such a long distance do you ask how long the red flag will wave? Or are you doubting the ultimate victory of our revolution? The long march has only just begun with one step, and you're already wavering? Grit your teeth and persevere." Ndu retorted, "Why say that? Aren't I trying to preserve a portion of our revolutionary strength? If we blindly follow you, and it causes losses to the revolution, who will be to blame then?" Our conversation was halfway done when Lac Nin suddenly cried out, "Look, everyone! Is there something behind us? It looks like a water monster." I also heard a strange sound in the water behind us. Turning my head to shine the flashlight, I only saw splashing waves. A giant dark shadow in the water was rapidly approaching. The flashlight's beam wasn't wide enough to clearly see what it was, but as the saying goes, he who comes is not kind, he who is kind does not come. We immediately drew our daggers, preparing for battle. The force of the underground waves and current grew stronger by the moment. We fundamentally could not stop. We were involuntarily carried forward by the river water. The giant monster behind us clung tightly, like a shadow. Most of its body remained in the water, stirring up wave after wave. The cave was too dark, we could only hear it, not see it. Judging by the sound, the creature must have been at least 7 or 8 meters long. At the very end of the underground river, the current became even swifter. The four of us, fearing being swept away in different directions, held tightly to each other in a single mass. We spun several times in the current before being ejected from a cave mouth. Below was an enormous underground river with very high water temperatures. Countless small tributaries, like the one we had just swum through, cascaded down from the cliff walls like spouts, all flowing into this main river. On both sides, numerous rock formations jutted out, continuously spewing white, hot steam. Amidst the rock crevices, there was even some turbid red lava. It seemed this was likely the underground volcanic belt Lac Nin had spoken of. The river water temperature was extremely high. In the swift current, we struggled with all our might to scramble onto a large rock slab at the river's edge. We realized that even this rock was warm. The fiery glow from the nearby lava flow provided enough light, so I turned off the flashlight to conserve precious battery. I asked everyone, "Can you see clearly? What exactly was that behind us just now?" Its head was huge. Ndu and Lac Nin both couldn't see clearly and shook their heads simultaneously. The worst off was Caoa, who had swallowed a belly full of water, his stomach swollen and distended. Just as he was about to open his mouth, before he could say anything, he coughed out several mouthfuls of water. Rubbing his stomach, he said, "I saw that thing, it followed us and fell into the river." To be safe, Ndu stood up with his knife, examining the situation in the river below. "Where's the water monster?" "There's nothing there." As soon as he finished speaking and was about to turn back, a red striped tongue over 2 meters long shot up from the river, coiled around Ndu's legs, pulled him off balance, and dragged him into the water. Fortunately, Caoa was quick-witted and agile. He immediately plunged his bayonet into the long red tongue. The monster, in pain, released Ndu. Its two eyes, like red lanterns, widened, and it crawled onto the bank. Its shape was identical to the salamander Ndu had shot dead earlier, an amphibian-like head and a body like a skinless crocodile. Only this salamander was truly enormous, over 10 meters long. Its body shimmered with colorful scales. It lashed its tail fiercely, staring at us menacingly. I asked Lac Nin, "Engineer Lac, are you sure it doesn't harm humans? Why is this one so big?" Lac Nin's face was pale. She stammered, That was the one I talked about before. And this one, it's the king salamander. It's very aggressive. It went extinct during the Ice Age. Who would have thought it would still be here? No one could have imagined that such a beast, extinct since ancient times, would still exist in this place isolated from the outside world. Underground creatures like salamanders are cold-blooded animals. The extremely high temperature made the king salamander before us incredibly fierce. Moreover, Caoa had just stabbed its tongue, and the smell of blood in its mouth fueled an intense desire to attack. Who knew if the salamander we shot earlier was a relative of its or not? In any case, a vendetta had been formed, and both sides had to fight it out here. I gave a signal with my eyes. Ndu and Caoa understood, and they successively attacked the king salamander from two sides. The three-person fighting group formed a pincer movement to trap it. The monster roared furiously, baring its fangs and claws before the three of us. Without waiting for us to act, it swept its colossal tail horizontally, flipping Caoa onto the ground, coiling around him, and then opening its bloody maw, intending to bite. Salamanders naturally have no teeth, but in the enormous mouth of this king salamander, both upper and lower jaws had 3 rows of sharp teeth. If it bit him, there would be nothing left of Caoa. Ndu and I saw the urgency. We quickly lunged forward, the two of us working together, one above and one below, to pry open the salamander's mouth. No matter what, we couldn't let it bite down, or Caoa's head would surely be gone. At that moment, Caoa became extraordinarily brave. Although his body from the stomach down was tightly coiled by the king salamander's tail, his hands did not stop. He saw that the monster had thick, rough skin, impervious to fire and water, so he plunged his bayonet forcefully into its mouth. The salamander, wounded in the mouth, was both startled and enraged. With a powerful shudder, it flung the 3 people clinging to its body to the ground. The monster's strength was truly terrifying. I was thrown against a rock, my vital energy churning, seeing stars. Ndu was thrown into the river but climbed out immediately, steam rising from his body, scalded by the hot river water, yelping in pain. Trying to wrestle with this enormous salamander with just 3 bayonets was like trying to fight rocks with eggs. The 4 of us shouted once and then fled together. The king salamander pursued us relentlessly from behind. The ground was entirely rock and ash, soft and slippery to step on, making running extremely strenuous. To escape the monster behind us, we stepped on the rock slabs along the riverbed, climbing up the steep slope, using both hands and feet, ascending higher and higher. Halfway up, I heard Ndu's voice from below, reminding me to be careful. I looked down and saw the king salamander crawling up the cliff face like a giant lizard, clinging closely behind me. The distance between it and me was less than 3 meters. Its long, slender tongue was about to lick my backside. I thought of jumping down to escape, but I had already climbed too high. I wasn't sure I could land safely in the river. Even a slight mistake and falling onto a rock would be disastrous. I cursed loudly, pulled out my bayonet with one hand, preparing to risk my life. Even if I died, I had to take this monster down with me. Lac Nin suddenly remembered something. She pressed her face against the cliff and shouted down, "Comrade Yi!" Grenade. The others also remembered at the same time. That's right, we still had one unused grenade, tucked into Ndu's equipment belt. Chinese, made wooden, handled grenades were all waterproof. Some soldiers stationed at Qinghai Lake even frequently used these grenades for fishing. Although everyone had just been submerged in water, the grenade was probably not wet. Luckily, Lac Nin reminded us. Ndu quickly pulled out the grenade. "Yi! Catch this," he said, and then tossed it down to me at an angle. I immediately bit the bayonet in my mouth, extended my right hand to catch the grenade, pushed off the safety cap with my thumb, opened my mouth to let the bayonet drop, then used my teeth to bite off the pin ring. The grenade's fuse flared, hissed, and billowed white smoke. I turned down and aimed the grenade directly at the king salamander's mouth. It had no idea what a grenade was, it just saw a black object flying down. It coiled its tongue around it and put it into its mouth, following its daily hunting habit. A bang sound rang out. The grenade exploded inside its oral cavity. Although the king salamander's skin was tough, the flesh inside its mouth was very soft. The grenade blew its head apart from the inside out. It fell down the cliff face, its massive body convulsed a few times, then it flipped onto its back, revealing its pale belly, lying dead on the rock by the river. I let out a sigh of relief. My whole body was drenched in sweat. I hadn't felt very scared moments ago, but now my limbs felt weak and limp. As I looked down, my head spun. Suddenly, the cliff face shook violently. The river water below surged upward. The air was thick with the smell of sulfur, and hot waves shot up from below.